All right, so we just started a little bit ago. We were talking about rational exponents. That's when the exponent is a fraction. Top part of the fraction is a power. Bottom part of the fraction is the root. And I rewrote it this way. This is how I'm going to do it in the notes because that's how it shows up on the worksheet. So if I see 16 to the 1/2 just means square root. It's the square root of 16, which you could go ahead and say is 4. But we're just learning how to go back and forth between the radical and the power, so not a big deal there. If I see 27 to the 1/3, 1/3 is a cubed root. So you put a little 3 inside the check mark part of your radical, and the 27 goes inside. So we've learned how to do these. You can do them with the calculator. You can think about powers. But for today, what I want to do is just go back and forth between the rational power and the root. Now, if I have x to the 2/3, the 3 at the bottom tells me it's going to be the cubed root of x, and the 2 tells me that the whole thing is going to be squared. So this is how they're going to write it on your worksheet, so I'm going to leave it that way, which is a little different than what's at the top, but it's all good. In the next one, the 4 in the bottom is your root. Put it in some parentheses. The 3 is the power on the outside. So literally, you just have to know where to put the 4, where to put the 3. That's all I'm asking, is that you can put them in the right place. Okay, on the next one, I have 2x to the 2/5. So when I make my radical, which one of these numbers goes in the check mark? The 2 or the 5? Good. And then the 2x that's going inside here, we're going to do actually, we don't have to do parentheses. You can if you want to. If I put parentheses on the outside when I do the squared, then I don't have to do them inside the radical. So the 2 goes here, the 5 goes there. All right, so there always has to be a twist. Negative powers we've talked about already quite a bit. They flip it. All that's going to do is make this 1 over. And then I have 4th root of x to the first power. If it's a first power, you don't really have to do anything, and that's the worst looking root ever, so let me fix it. That's just it. That's your answer right there. The 4 goes here. The negative makes it a fraction. That's it. Just rearrange it. Don't shake your head. It's going to be fine. All right, so on this next one, the 2x is going to be inside the radical. Where does the 3 go?
It goes on the check marking.
In the check marking thing. What do I do with the 2?
It goes over
It like goes in the outside of the parentheses.
Okay, so I'm going to make parentheses squared. What does the negative tell me?
You put it on top.
Put it over under 1. So I just stick a 1 at the top. So do each piece separately. This is what goes here. The 2 is what goes over here. The negative just makes it 1 over. There's not going to be anything else out there except a 1. So we're just rearranging. You're not calculating anything. You're just rearranging.
I like it.
Okay, so let's do the other side where we're going from the radical to the other. If you have a square root, that is a 1/2 power. Square roots are always 1/2. Cubed root of 8 would be 8 to the 1/3 power. Notice that there's not any powers on those. That's why this is 1. Because I could say that this is to the first power if I wanted to. First power just doesn't do much, except that's where the 1 comes from. So on this x, it's just a square root. I just put a 1/2. Square root is a 1/2. Cubed root is a 1/3. And then we get down to this. Now on the worksheet, they're going to have this written differently. So let me show you what that'll look like. They're actually going to have it written like this with the parentheses. So when I go to write it, I look at what's inside. Okay, I've got an x. And then this number that's in the check mark is the bottom of my fraction. The power is the top of my fraction. So what's inside is your base. These two numbers make your fraction. Power goes on top, root goes on bottom.
This is so hot. Thank you for doing these.
Saving this for last. All right, now if I have 2x in here, we're going to do 2x with some parentheses and then the 1/3 power because it's a cubed root. So I have to make
Top of the page again.
huh?
Like the top box on the page.
Yes, there's the top box. Although this part over here is how they're actually going to have it written on the worksheet, so I'm kind of doing this. This was from somebody else's notes. I thought it looked really cool, but then this is what was on the worksheet, so we're kind of doing a blended version. So on this one, the reason why I use parentheses because I want to make sure, because the 2 and the x are both in the root, that I have them grouped when I take that power. All right, so on the next one, on the worksheet, they're going to write this differently. They're going to have the 4th root of y and then parentheses with the cube. Either way, when I write this, the y is going to be the base. What's my fraction going to be? 3/4. So it doesn't matter which way they write it. You know that the 4th and the little check mark is the bottom. Wherever they put that power is the top.
This is so easy.
Now, if they start doing fractions with the 1/, what does that tell me about my power?
Oh, it's negative.
It's going to be a negative. So you just do this bottom part like you normally would. I'm going to have 3x, stick it in parentheses. It's a square root, so that's a 1/2 power. And then because it's in the denominator, I just stick a negative on it. That's it. So the 3x, it's 1/2 because it's square root. It just has a power of 1, so that's why it's 1. Because it's a fraction, you have a negative. So does anybody want to try this last one?
No. And
There's another way to write it. I could do that really quick. So you could have the cubed root of x, and then maybe they have the squared like this. I'll start you off. X.
it's x. Is it 2 then? 5x or is it 2 squared? Negative 2 3.
So it would be negative 2/3. So this 2 can be here or here. So basically it's just a power. It's somewhere. That's the top.
Thank you.
The root is the bottom. And since it's in the denominator, I stick a negative on it. That just tells us, oh, it was a fraction.